Hello everyone, it's Kyle from Andrew Hilton here and welcome back. Welcome to our wonderful Wednesday night beer tasting series. And this week we are presenting Oldman Brewing from Lundbrook, Alberta, so just the tiniest bit down the road. We will have Adam Wilgosh joining us just very momentarily here. He just walked in the door. I think he was out guiding fly fishers out on the Oldman River, probably the Crow's Nest River, honestly, I would guess, unless you were out on the upper Oldman. But yeah, we're going to be doing 5 beers tonight. Very first time we've ever done 5 beers. But normally we do the tall cans, and Devin and I had a real debate. Do we do the tasting for less money? Do we, just gouge people? Devin was on team gouge people. He's a bad person. But I said we should throw in this beautiful bomber brown ale to just balance out the difference and do a really, really cool tasting here. Apparently Megan can't hear the background music in the lobby. I don't know if we had music in the lobby. We may not have. So apologies for that. Adam, can you hear me? Can everybody hear Adam? Aaron can? All right. So if Aaron can hear Adam, we can all hear Adam. Adam, welcome. This is Adam Wilgosh of Oldman River, head brewer and owner of the brewery. Welcome and thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Thanks for featuring Oldman River.
Well, we've been wanting to for a while, and we finally kind of got around to the point where we figured out where we could do, well, we were just going to wait till you guys did tall cans, but I figured that could be a while. So, this seems easier than just waiting around for you guys for that. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about the brewery? I know you guys started kind of the tail end of July 2017, and it's been an absolute rocket ship ride since then. So, walk us through it.
Yeah, well, the whole journey kind of started with a homebrew beer kit. We purchased that. Brittany brought it home from a garage sale one time and started home brewing. That progressed to all grain brewing, and then I was lucky enough to get a job at Olds College as assistant brewer after a bunch of home brewing, which was a great thing to get. Sort of taught me if I wanted to actually brew or not, and if we wanted to be involved in the brewery industry. And the answer was yes. So had a friend that was crazy enough to join us on the endeavor. So away we went, and that was 2014, I think we got started, all that stuff. So a couple years of planning and building, gathering money, all that stuff, getting recipes down, and then 2017 we were able to open, and then since then, yeah, it's been a rocket ship or a roller coaster. So some good things, some a lot of learning, and
always is.
Yeah, for sure. So you think you have a pretty good idea of how everything's going to go, and then you actually open the business. And so we had the tap room that we opened. It was the end of July of 2017, and that was huge. And the tap room has really been a great sort of vehicle for putting across our sort of image and how we want to present ourselves to the world. So
and the tap room is open again now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we're 2 meter distancing between tables, so a few less seats, but we have a sort of a patio area out now as well, so we can use that. But yeah, it's been this year's been really good actually, despite the COVID craziness.
Well, let's get some beer in people's glasses. Let's start with the lager, I think, the Blue Bridge lager. So I'm curious, where is the Blue Bridge we were referencing versus the brewery?
Okay, so the Blue Bridge is actually on the Castle River, and it's actually not blue anymore. It's yellow.
Well, that's inconvenient for branding, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But that's sort of a local thing. The previous bridge, previous to the 1995 flood, was blue. So people around, it's a famous swimming hole, sort of fishing spot, place where people get together and play in the sand and on the beach in the summertime. So people that are from around here, if you say Blue Bridge, you can kind of tell if people are that local or not by if they know Blue Bridge or not. So
Lumberg
it was
Falls is
kind
for tourists. The Blue Bridge swimming holes where the locals go.
of, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And yeah, you chose this for your lager, and I absolutely love this lager. Like, I understand the economics of making a lager as a small brewery. You need something to sell to the Bud Light drinker who walks in the door, and I have a limited amount of patience for that with most breweries. I actually really like your lager. Tell me why I like yours more than I like, I don't want to say every other brewery doing one, but let's, it's Wednesday and I'm tired. It's every other brewery doing one. I like yours better. So tell me why.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, I'm a lager fan. I like good German lagers and Czech lagers, that type of thing. So I guess I tried to style it after that, as opposed to just making a light, Canadian or Molson copy. So maybe that's why. I wanted to make something that I wanted to drink, and that certainly isn't every other lager out there. So I'm a little bit pickier with the lagers. The recipe's fairly straightforward. I mean, lots of Pils malt and that type of thing. Noble hops. We used noble hops all throughout, so we don't kind of cheap out on the bittering hops or anything like that. So what I've wanted is something that's smooth with some lingering bitterness and a good solid malt presence. So I think I'm pretty happy with where the lager's at right now.
I think you've definitely accomplished that, yeah.
Well, thank you. If you've been drinking it all the way through, then you've probably seen some changes in it, and I'm that way by nature. I can't leave anything alone. So
I think it's maybe a touch sweeter and a touch weightier than it used to be.
Okay, yeah, I could see that coming across. Yeah.
What do you see the changes being, the evolution being? Where have you been working towards?
Yeah, I've had to restrain the bitterness a bit, and we started out using a kind of a Hellas yeast strain, and we've sort of abandoned that for a number of reasons, which sort of lightened it up from a grain perspective. But I think if you're getting like a weediness coming across, that would be I'm trying to think, probably yeast strain, just whatever is coming across fermentation wise.
Now, lagering obviously takes longer than making an ale. How long do you have to age this to actually make a lager? And for those who don't know, what's the additional cost and the extra time that goes into making a lager versus an ale?
Yeah, so in comparison, ales we can turn out start to finish. We can have them out the door in 2 to 3 weeks. Lager takes at least 10 days to ferment. So that's just 10 days in the fermenter before we transfer it to a lagering tank. We have 4 separate lagering tanks and 1 fermenter that is devoted solely to lager. So 5 tanks out of 9 tanks in the brewery are just for that beer. And so an additional 4 to 6 weeks in the lagering tanks before we release it. So altogether, 5 to 7 weeks turnaround on that beer in comparison to an ale that we do in 3. So,
would you say the lager is your best seller, or?
It depends. Out of our tap room, for sure. Most of the pint sales out of our tap room are the Blue Bridge. As we get further afield, people are more interested, it seems, in the other flavors. Pale Ale's been doing really well for us this year, so we're happy about that. But it is, numbers wise, it's probably our number 1 beer. Yeah.
Nice. Then let's move on to the blonde.
Sure.
So now, forgive me if I maybe misread, but I don't remember this being called a citrus blonde when it was still in the stubby bottles. The cans called a citrus blonde. Was it always a citrus blonde, or did the recipe change slightly, or am I just misremembering?
Yeah, no, it wasn't named Citrus Blonde originally. It's always been the same recipe, but we found that people were getting confused in terms of comparison with the most average blonde or most blondes that you see out there. A blonde in a normal craft brewery tends to be their lager substitute or whatever their entry level beer is,
No,
I
you can
guess.
call it a lager substitute. We're good with that.
Okay. So since we had a lager, and I just really like this recipe. It's simple to brew and has some. I've always liked the Belgian characteristics. Um, and so citrus came from just the hops. We don't add anything other than hops to give a kind of a citrusy character, but that's kind of what the beer developed into. Um, so hopefully you're tasting some grapefruit and some lemon, that type of thing.
More lemon on my end, but yeah,
Okay.
absolutely I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah. So so adding the citrus to the can when we went into cans was just to give people more of a heads up of what they were going to expect when they opened it up.
Now, you guys went from, kegs only to stubby bottles to cans in really, really short order there. I think that whole journey took about 18 months. How was that for you? That sounds expensive.
So well, we had the bottler right from the get go, and it just took us a while to get into using it, honestly. Sourcing bottles, and I had it in my head that I was going to bring back the stubby, and I tried, but it didn't really work out, just financially.
I mean,
And,
nobody,
and
including me, saw the can explosion of late 2019, where if it wasn't in a can, people didn't care. I sincerely don't know where that came from. I mean, it's
yeah,
fun, but I don't know
yeah,
where that came from.
yeah, it just seemed if you were in any kind of other container, you were missing out on sales. And so the kegs to bottles, that was a longer transition. But yeah, the bottling, it was too labor intensive. Our bottler was a real hands-on unit. You could do 4 bottles at a time, and so it just this time last year I was bottling and 14 to sort of 16 hours a day just trying to keep up with the bottle demand. So something had to change, and that's why we morphed out of that pretty quickly.
And do you have your own canning line, or are you doing the mobile thing like all the guys in Calgary?
Yeah, doing the mobile thing, and until we can gain enough capital to get a unit of our own, but it's a night and day difference. The mobile canners come in, and they in a day or two they're doing what it would have taken us a week to do. So and shorter, like it's crazy the time
And
difference.
that's
So
and for those who don't know, we've danced around the mobile canning topic a little bit with 88 and establishment, but it's basically just an entire canning line, everything included except the cans, just in the back of a semi trailer, isn't it? And they basically roll up to the brewery and they take care of everything. Do you want to walk us through that process a little bit? Because I'm familiar in theory with it, but I've never actually seen it happening.
okay, yeah, yeah. So how it works is they actually look after the cans as well. So the majority of craft breweries don't have the capital finances to buy printed cans. So you'll see shrink sleeve cans, which is a plastic sleeve that goes over a blank can and then is hit with heat to shrink the label onto the can. So it looks like a printed can, but isn't. So the mobile canner, they take care of that as well. So they store the cans, and they also get the shrink sleeves after artwork is approved and all that stuff. So we'll let them know how many tanks of beer we have ready to can for our upcoming canning date. They'll shrink sleeve those cans for us, and they'll bring them down with them when they come. The morning of that they arrive, we need to have the beer, prepped and ready. So nice and cold. Carbonation needs to be where it should be. So we would have spent a kind of a day or two trying to get those things in order. But basically, yeah, they roll in hour and a half, maybe less, an hour for them to set up. They'll roll in with the cans, with the canning unit, and two of our staff will help out. So there will typically be two guys that work with the canning line itself on their end, and they manage that. And then basically our two staff are just pulling cans off the line and boxing them, putting the pack tech, the 6-pack holders or 4-pack holders on there, and then palletizing them. So it rolls out pretty fast, about 2 hours per tank for us, and we're doing around 1,800 liters per batch.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's incredible, isn't it? I love that this is. I had this conversation with Devin, I think on Monday afternoon, like, oh, why aren't growlers a thing anymore? It's like, because there's mobile canning lines now. You know, all the interesting stuff that, like, the growlers were invented because really cool breweries that on small budgets couldn't afford bottling or canning lines. Mobile canning kind of killed the growler because all the awesome new small breweries, limited releases, everything, you can can those now. Growlers have they're cool and they're environmentally responsible, but they've kind of lost their place in history because all the cool things that would have been growler only, now there's mobile canning lines. And I actually kind of like that better because I love cans. Cans are great.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how that's happened, and interesting point about the growlers. Like we've certainly seen a change in how our beer goes out the door, like in terms of off sales out of the tap room. Like once there was cans involved, probably our growler sales are I can't speculate at what percentage, but certainly a lot less.
Yeah, for us as well, like when we first set up the growler station, it was not hard to get a keg that was not available in cans. It would be, here's our growler station, 5 taps, none of which are available in cans or bottles. You can only get it on tap. And here we are 8 years later, and it's like, well, there's one thing, and we had to beg for it, and it's going to be sold out in 2 days, and cool. Enjoy our growler station. I still like growlers. I do like they're environmentally responsible. I do like that occasionally I can get something really rare, but like the idea of like, hey, they only made like 10 liters of this. Well, they're going to be in 4-packs, aren't they? Like 3 4-packs, but still. No, let's jump on to the Lime Sally because I really like the Lime Sally. Okay. I actually had this with my wife's family actually for like a super Americanized Chinese food. It was the exact right pairing. It was perfect for like really, really Americanized Chinese food, and it was just perfect together. But this is, at least in the cans, your newest product. I know that fly fishing pervades all of your packaging to a certain point here, and you've got the Lime Sally on the actual can here. Tell us about the Lime Sally, A, the insect, and B, the beer, and how they relate to each other.
Sure. So as a fisherman, I kind of I look at things in terms of the seasons and what's available, and I'm hoping this is a start. The Lime Sally is a start to more beers that are named after bugs, because I got a special place in my heart for aquatic insects. But the Lime Sally is a stonefly, and so they'll live a good portion of their life underwater as a larva, and then they hatch in the summertime. So you'll hear the terms Lime Sally or Yellow Sally. They're a small, kind of a 1/2-inch long bug. And if you spend any time near rivers, you'll probably see they're just real bright colored, kind of dainty looking bugs, and fish love them. So they have a place in my heart for that as well. So being that we first released this last year for the summertime, and it was meant to be summer seasonal then. And so with the Lime Sally, and we wanted to tie the two together. And we knew I had this recipe for a lime flavored beer. And so yeah, it just fit.
So now this is a dry hopped citrus ale. Now I know you do put at least some fruit into this. What proportion, as the brewer, the citrus notes? What proportion from the hops? What proportion from the fruit? Or am I completely talking about an ass and there's no fruit in this at all?
Actually, there's no dry hopping in this one. It's a late addition. We do 50 pounds of limes in every batch. And I will admit there's a little bit of extract in there because it's pretty hard to get such a fruit forward flavor to come across in brewing, especially with citrus fruit like that. So we sort of, the backbone of the citrus flavor is those limes that we add, and then we sort of brighten it up with a little bit of extract flavoring. And but the base beer is just a straight blonde, so we use all origin malt in this beer from Strathmore. It's their origin pills, and just one other some oats in it for head retention and a little bit more body. So super simple recipe. Myself and Ben, my assistant brewer there, we love brewing this beer because it's a nice brew day.
Nice.
Much heavy lifting.
We had a question in the crowd. I'll take this one. Can you compare Lime Sally to Bud Light Lime? Yes, I can. Lime Sally's good. End of question.
I'd be lying if I said that wasn't the first time that comparison was made. But yeah, I hope it doesn't come across too much like Bud Light Lime. But
it's not chemically, which is really what, it doesn't taste like lime Jolly Ranchers. It's not terrible.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I answered that question.
No, I think that's totally fair. I think we are 3 beers deep and officially in the sarcasm portion of the broadcast. So,
yeah.
Let's jump on to the pale ale, which I really, really respect. This is a lovely, bright, fresh American-style pale ale to me. If you were going for more English, I don't see it as dark enough in color to really be an English pale, but it has some English-style notes. But to me, this is very kind of Sierra Nevada, but better made sort of thing.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's kind of you to say. Yeah, so the idea from the beginning was an American-style pale ale, and sort of since we don't have a dedicated IPA on our lineup, I wanted to sort of give enough hop flavor to satisfy people that were looking for an IPA, and but I use an English yeast, so that's where those notes would be coming from. So I like things to be clean, but I like fermentation character. I like the stuff that the yeast contributes to the beer. So that's why that's coming across. So I tend to pick more sort of style specific yeasts rather than something that's just super clean, like a Chico strain or something like that. But yeah, so we used the citrus forward hops on this one. Only 2 varieties. When we originally started brewing it, we started out with 3, and we've sort of nailed it down to pulled out what we wanted and what was working and what wasn't. And yeah, I like where the pale ale's at, and if sales are any indication, it's sort of hitting its stride. People are getting onto it.
Well, I wasn't going to ask, but you brought it up. So for most of the breweries that we do sell here, their IPA is the best seller. Why don't you have a dedicated IPA? It's a question worth asking.
Yeah. Our neck of the woods, I guess. We have a tough time moving through IPA when it's on tap in the tap room. Now that we are doing the canning thing, we could probably add one to our lineup, but we just don't have the space to do that right now. So we're on 4 core styles right now with 3 fermenters, and one of those fermenters is dedicated to the lager. So that means we have to make three styles of beer and 2 fermenters and keep up with production. So the only real reason I have for not having an IPA is that I just don't have the space to do it yet. But as soon as I can, I will.
Well, that's fair. It was a bit of a pushing the envelope question for me. Normally, I'm not that sassy, but you did open the door. I had to ask.
No, that's fine. We get asked that a lot. I've been trying to put one out in the summertime every year, but this year I think I'm going to fall short on that one. But
that's fair. You know what? You got a lot of things going on. It sounds like so. I'll ask this though. With the core range, do you find that you actually have a bias towards one of the beers that you really feel is kind of the best expression for Oldman River that you kind of respect of your own recipes the most? Or do you kind of fall in with the crowd and say, yes, this is our best seller and everything else? Or is there something that you just say, you know what, of the beers that I've made in our core range, this is the one I'm proudest of. I think that irrespective of anything else, this is what I think represents my brewing best.
Yeah, I think I think well the next beer we're going to go into, probably St. Joe's, is probably the one I'm the proudest of, definitely.
Nice. Well, we're going to jump quickly into shameless promotion corner here real quick and talk about what we've got coming up for our next couple events. Next week on our Beer Tasting Wednesdays, we'll be doing pale ales of many descriptions, including an IPA, because, pale ales in general. And we're going to be doing 4, as always, all tall cans, all Albertan once again. So this particular beer, I think it got ignored a little bit when I brought it down from Calgary because it doesn't look like either an annex beer or an establishment beer, but it's actually a collaboration between the two. This is a Belgian table beer, which I am going to use my, executive powers of running this tasting to call a Belgian pale ale. And we're going to run your Belgian things Belgian pale. So light, spicy, pretty interesting Belgian beer. Really, really like it. I think it's a really fun expression. And then we're going to jump into a beer that I absolutely adore called Labour Party from Annex. This is a blood orange and pineapple pale ale. You do get the snappy hops in the pale ale, but it's kind of hidden behind the other fruit. This beer, as of last night, 11:59, this was not in this lineup. This is the Accidental Beach and the accidental beer in our tasting. This showed up this morning. The guys from SYC just walked through the door and said, hey, we have this cool pale ale. Would you like to try it? And we said, cool. Well, I say we. I wasn't actually even in yet. I got here at 11 because I had to stay late for this. But yeah, Devin was here and he said, yeah, I want to try it. And they tasted it and was like, well, this is awesome. We have to have all of this. We'll take like 10. They're like, well, we have 3 flats in the back of the car. That's all you can have. And they said, yes, we'll take all of that. So we have this. 1 flat's going to the beer tasting. The other 2 flats will be on the shelves as soon as they send me an invoice so I can actually legally sell it. So that's a American pale ale with lime and salt. So kind of like a lime goza that's also a pale ale. It's great, though. I'm really looking forward to tasting this one with you folks. And then 88, I've talked a little bit about my issues with getting 88 and the fact that, everybody else on Earth, I place an order and they send me the beer I order. 88, I place an order. I don't even bother placing an order. They just tell me what I'm allowed that week. And I just say, yes, I'll take what you'll allow me that week. So we're going to do Wave Pool because I can actually get some right now. And Wave Pool is our, I wouldn't say strawman IPA, but we're going to call it a strawman IPA because it's a really fun East Coast meets West Coast, really great IPA that I just like drinking in general. So we'll be covering those 4 beers this coming Wednesday, the 22nd of July. And then I have to publish a retraction. I had said that the head winemaker of Muga Estates from Spain was going to be joining us Friday, July 24th. They are not. Because that would be about breakfast time for them. It would be about 6:30 in the morning for these folks. And they are not going to be joining us. Instead, Chris from Christopher Stewart's Wine and Spirits is going to be joining us. And he'll be walking us through. He is the Canadian importer for this Muga line. it was just too darned early in the morning for those folks, and I don't blame them. I don't feel like drinking 4 bottles of wine at 6 a.m. I'd get nothing done with the rest of the day. So this is our wine tasting coming up. It will be hosted by the Canadian importer rather than the actual folks in Spain, because I don't want anybody to have, 4 bottles of wine with their bacon and eggs. That just seems wrong. So we're not going to do that to them. Instead, it will be hosted by the Canadian importer, but we are still going to soldier on. We're going to keep going ahead with Muga. And now we come to the fun part of the tasting. We come to the giant bottle of brown ale, the 750 mils, the wine bottle of brown ale. And I love these. So you said that your fave is the brown ale. Why don't you tell us about the brown ale?
Yeah, well, I have a special place in my heart for Belgian beer, doubles and quads in particular. So I kind of had it in my head that we should have something like that on the lineup, and so set about trying to create something that was different enough that we could call it our own, but stay somewhat to style, Abbey style in particular. So I wanted it to be dark. I wanted it to be roasty, but I wanted some dark fruit flavor and that to come across, and for it to be light enough that you could drink a whole glass of it. So I'm hoping that comes across. It's certainly been of the beers that I like to mess with. It's been my favorite, and it seems like I get a little bit of leeway with the little tweaks that I like to make every once in a while, and I'll get some feedback here and there from people that say, "Oh, I like what you did here," or I can taste something a little subtly different, and I'm like, "Yeah, that comes across." So it's been fun, and it's also fun in shows. With people that'll come up to your trade show booth and be like, "I don't like beer at all," or "I only like Bud Light," or something like that, and we can put a dark beer in their hand, and they're like, "Wow, that's not what I expected at all." So it's fun that way too. So,
well, Belgian double is not a style that a lot of people really know very well, and I can see why it's kind of called an Abbey style brown ale, because it is Southern Alberta, and not everybody knows exactly what a Belgian double is. But so St. Joe's being, who is St. Joe?
St. Joe's actually is named after, there's a little town of Cowley that I live in. There's a church kind of just across the alley from my house named St. Joseph's.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, I went to church there when I was a kid, so it kind of fit. And I was looking for something to tie in the sort of monastic kind of origins of that kind of Belgian style or Abbey style, so that seemed to work. Now, as for St. Joseph, I'm behind on my theology. I'll give.
That's totally fair. I mean, the comments are probably going to excoriate you now and want deep details, because we've had some wonderful comments. Like, we had somebody fix or help with a brewing recipe on the fly. We've had some very, very interesting meta conversations come out of the comments. So come on, comments, pick up the game. Cool. But yeah, I've always liked the St. Joe's. When I find it around town on tap, it's something I always order because it's absolutely delicious. I find both Belgian styles as a rule and brown ales are kind of underrepresented, despite the fact that I love both of them. And I get this beautiful, root beer, nutty, rich, beautiful thing out of this. And then you did a seasonal version of this back in the fall where you aged this in black velvet rye barrels. What was that experience like? How was your barrel aging project go for you?
Yeah, well, that one, if I was to do it again, I'd tone back on I underestimated the power of the black velvet, I must admit. Anybody that had that beer probably can attest to that. It really came across. So we didn't mess with the barrels at all before we introduced the beer to it. So the folks at Black Velvet were nice enough to give me some barrels to use. And we just got them. I got them back to the brewery. We emptied out if there was anything left in there, and then we just slammed the beer into it and aged it for, I can't remember now, I think it was 4 months, which might have been on the long side. I'm learning things about barrel aging, but that was kind of my first go around with it, and yeah, it was a learning experise.
I actually liked that beer, so I can tell you're kind of not 100% sold on it, but I liked that beer. But I don't know, I like barrel-aged, bourbon-aged beers, so.
Yeah, it really came, if you had it cold and didn't allow it to warm up a bit. Like cold, it was quite aggressive. As it warmed up, it kind of blended a little bit better, I found. So.
I know I'm on camera and you're not, but like what's behind me on camera here is the entire single malt whiskey section. Like, you know, I have the store now, I run the beer tastings, I'm a wine tasting person, but like I was brought in to do whiskey. I sometimes have whiskeys come across my desk that are 51% alcohol. I'm like, oh yeah, you can drink that like water. So when you were saying, oh man, that's 0.75% higher alcohol than I wanted, how is anyone going to drink this? I'm like, wow, that's glassy smooth. I have a bit of a broken palate for that sort of thing. Devin, I'll tell you nightmare stories when I did the WSET program with him, and we were like trying to taste like fine details in wine. I was able to pick out all the delicate notes. It's like, what do you think the alcohol is? And I'm just literally stabbing in the dark. I have no idea what the alcohol is. I've gotten better, but yeah, picking out alcohol and things, I'm really bad at it. So yeah, no, it was fun. I liked the rye barrel aged.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, we're gonna do something else. Black Velvet's been nice enough to give us some more barrels, so there'll be a new project coming out pretty soon.
Nice. And speaking of new projects with the brown ale, I understand our big friend, the glass bottles, they're short for this world. I've heard rumors of tall cans.
Yeah, I can if I hold it up, I can.
Nice.
See that? Yeah.
Oh, that looks so good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm stoked for that.
Our latest canning run, we put that in. So.
Oh, I'm so happy about that. So the other beer that you guys have in these big bottles is the Bad Santa barley wine. Why don't you tell me about that a little bit? Because we still have some, and I think you guys still had a little until the last time I talked to you.
Yeah, well, there's another learning experience. Maybe don't name a beer after a holiday in case you don't sell it all at that holiday. So
yeah, try running a liquor store, try to sell, pumpkin beer after Remembrance Day. There's no such thing as cheap enough. Hey, this 6-pack of beer that was $17.95, yeah, it's $5.95. Oh no, it's Christmas beer season now. No, seasonal beers are an absolute mugs game.
Yeah, it's so that was the biggest learning experience on that one, but I really like the barley wine. I think it turned out really well. It was my first crack at it. As far as tasting notes, it's been a little bit since I've had it. It's going on a year old here pretty soon. It was also barrel aged, so it was the second run in the same barrels that we did the rye barrel aged Joe's beer in. So I think it had 6 months in the barrel.
So it was the second filling.
Yeah, exactly. So that Joe's pulled out a lot of the actual Black Velvet character, and then I think we with the barley wine has more of that oak kind of notes, the vanilla and that type of thing, maybe more present.
Really only one way to find out how this is aged.
Yeah, well, do you have one with you?
I might have it already in my glass and open.
Okay.
Sorry, I realize that you can't see me on camera, but I may now have Bad Santa in my glass.
Okay. Well, you tell me what you think.
Well, I'm getting tons of dates and sultanas and raisins.
Right.
I'm getting a nice bit of oak right on the very, very top. Like it's not coming off as vanilla bean, but it's coming like kind of the way vanilla comes through on like banana bread.
Okay. Sure.
And then I do get bananas. I do get like sweet malt grain. And then the mouth is surprisingly dry. And I know some of that's hopping early, and some of it's the barrel, but that's not
Yeah,
as sweet as I expect it to be.
it actually fermented out quite well. I was happy with it, and so I was shooting for a 10% beer, honestly, and then it started creeping up 11% after it spent more time in the barrel. So, um,
But it didn't quite hit. You have it labeled as 10.99.
yeah, well, it actually hit 10.99, so I thought maybe that was the thing to
That's
go with.
pretty damn cool. I like that. Honesty in packaging. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the dryness. I was happy with that. I didn't want it to come over to be too sweet and too not drinkable. But I think because of the low finishing gravity, I think we sort of hit a drinkable spot with it.
Well, I've got two really interesting questions from the comments, both from the same person, both from Eric Dick. Do you want to speak to the fact that your recipes tend to be transient, that they tend to change over time? Because it's something I keep hearing from breweries is, this recipe started out as this, and then it ended up as this. I think that's just good brewing, but do you want to talk about kind of, as a head brewer and a brewery owner, like the difficulty of managing a recipe over time and managing expectations of what it was versus what you want it to be?
Yeah, for sure. So I think kind of when everybody starts out with their breweries and they have their recipes that they've been brewing, or they've done their pilot batches, test batches, and they think they have it nailed. And then you set out on your production system, which is way bigger, and not everything comes across in percentages. So you can scale up what was your pilot batch, but you're not prepared for how fermenter geometry and aeration and other little nuances in the fermentation and in the brewing. Just the scale dictates and influences how the beer comes across. So what you were happy with before might not be what you get out of your production system, and that's a symptom, I guess, of craft breweries and a lot of breweries coming out that maybe don't have a ton of production experience because you're not maybe prepared to handle, or you're not prepared to deal with those changes. It's a lot of people are left kind of scratching their head. At least I was. When you scale up, and even going from the equipment that I brewed on in Olds, which was like 5 hex, there's differences, and you don't really have everything nailed down. So when you get to the production size, and maybe you find something that you don't like, but you're in a position where you have to or you're not 100% happy with, but you have to release it because you got to make money.
Yep.
So you have to release it, and then it's up to you. And if you're picky about it, you either let the beer. If you're not picky about it, you let the beer and the recipe be what they are, and you sell what came out of it. Or if you are, you like to. If you're the type of person that wants to mess around and wants to nail it, then there's going to be an evolution in the beer. I think that's just something that's going to happen. So if you compare that to, let's say, breweries that have been around for a long time, they've gone through those growing pains already. The beer that we're drinking now is a product of their evolution that happened a long time ago. That's, I think, what you're seeing now with a lot of craft breweries, is just hitting the spots that you want to hit and really nailing down your consistency. Just because of the explosion, you have a bunch of new breweries, and not everybody has everything together right off the bat. So
nice. The other question, also from Eric, was what was it like starting a relationship with Black Velvet?
Super easy, actually. I called them up, and said who I was. I met Claude there. He's the general manager, or I can't remember, but they came out and visited the brewery, had a beer with me, and um, kind of meet each other and see where both of us were about. And they've been super gracious, really helpful, and nice to deal with. It was easy.
Wonderful.
Nice guys. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Unless there's any last questions, we'll give the folks in the comments another couple of minutes to get in with last minute questions. But I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. I know you were out on the river all day and you absolutely had to race in to get to us tonight. I want to thank Brittany for covering just in case you couldn't have made it, because she was game. For those of you who are watching at home, Brittany was on like right up to like 30 seconds to camera going on. Brittany was like the person on camera. She's like, well, I'll do the first 2 beers. Adam can do the last like 3. No, we had this booked and it didn't work out because you had a last minute client book for guiding. And but yeah, for yourself, like if someone was coming into Oldman River and they were only going to try one thing, what would you be as the man behind the bar pouring off your super cool like fly rod shaped tap handles, what would you be pouring for someone as they came in and said, hey, I'm from Denmark, I just came to Lundberg for reasons. What should I try? What's your signature beer? What would you say that is?
Signature beer. I think I'd have to. Right now, I would pour them a pale ale. I think. Where beers are at right now, I'm most happy with the pale ale. They're all, I think, hitting their stride in a good spot. But given the time of year and whatnot, I think I'd give them a pale.
Nice. Well, thank you very much, Adam. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having us on and letting us talk a bit about our beer. Thanks to everybody that listens to me. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much. Have a wonderful night.
You too. Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
So that was Adam of Oldman River Brewing. Thank you again so much for joining us. And thank you to all of you for joining us. This has been a really, really fun Wednesday night. And we will join you again in another week. And we'll drink some beers and we'll have some conversations and we'll explore some new topics and maybe we'll get into some super weird meta-topical things. And it'll be great. Until then, I'm your host, Kyle, with Andrew Hilton Wine and Spirits. And yeah, this has been fun. I've drank a lot of beer tonight. Going from 4 to 5 beers, not a thing I expected to be this much of a difference, but it really is. And it's been a lot of fun. Ignore the fact that I also opened this barley wine. In the meantime, thank you very much and good night.
The following audio was from a live music session.